Sarah Mitchell hadn't slept properly in 3 weeks. Every night around 2:47 a.m., she would wake to the sound of her German shepherd, Atlas, moving through the house. Not the casual padding of paws she'd grown used to over the past 5 years. This was different, deliberate, purposeful. Tonight, exhausted and frustrated, she decided enough was enough. She needed to know what was happening. The bedroom was dark except for the pale moonlight filtering through sheer curtains. Sarah kept her breathing steady, pretending to sleep, waiting. Her husband Mark snored softly beside her, oblivious as always. Atlas lay at the foot of their bed, his massive frame rising and falling with each breath. Then at exactly 2:47 a.m., his ears perked up. Sarah's heart hammered against her ribs as she watched through barely opened eyes. Atlas lifted his head, scanning the room with an intensity that made her skin prickle. Without a sound, the 95-pound dog rose to his feet and moved toward the bedroom door with the stealth of a shadow. She waited 30 seconds before slipping out of bed, her bare feet silent on the hardwood floor. The house felt different at this hour, colder somehow. Every creak seemed amplified in the darkness. Following Atlas's path, Sarah moved through the hallway, her hand trailing along the wall for guidance. Where was he going? What had he been doing every single night? But what she was about to discover would change everything she thought she knew about her loyal companion. Sarah found Atlas sitting perfectly still at the top of the basement stairs, his ears forward, body rigid with attention. The basement door stood slightly ajar, something she was certain she'd locked before bed. A chill ran down her spine. For 5 minutes, Atlas didn't move. He simply sat, watching, listening. Then, as if receiving some invisible signal, he descended the stairs, disappearing into the darkness below. Sarah's hand trembled as she reached for her phone, turning on the flashlight. The beam cut through the shadows, revealing the wooden stairs that led down to their finished basement. They'd converted it into a family room 2 years ago, comfortable, ordinary, nothing that would draw a dog's interest night after night. She descended slowly, each step groaning under her weight despite her efforts at silence. The basement opened up before her. The sectional sofa, the large TV, Mark's workout equipment in the corner, boxes of old belongings they kept meaning to sort through. Atlas stood in the center of the room, facing the small ground-level window that looked out onto their backyard. His tail was low, his posture alert but not aggressive. He was waiting. Sarah checked her phone, 2:53 a.m. Then she heard it. A soft whimpering sound, barely audible, coming from outside the window. Atlas's ears twitched and he took 2 steps forward. The whimpering came again, more desperate this time. Sarah moved to the window, her breath fogging the glass as she peered into the darkness of their backyard. At first she saw nothing, just the outline of their fence, the silhouette of the oak tree, the neighbor's security light casting long shadows. Then something moved near the back fence. What she saw made her blood run cold. Huddled against the fence, barely visible in the dim light, was a small figure. Sarah's hands shook as she adjusted the angle of her phone's flashlight. It was a child. A little girl no more than 6 or 7 years old, wearing thin pajamas despite the October chill. She was shivering, tears streaming down her dirt-smudged face. Sarah's maternal instincts exploded. She ran to the basement door that led to the backyard, fumbling with the lock. Atlas was already there, waiting patiently as she threw the door open. But instead of running to the child, Atlas did something unexpected. He turned back to Sarah and gently, but firmly, pressed his body against her legs, blocking her path. His brown eyes met hers with an intelligence that made her pause. "Atlas, move," she whispered urgently. "That child needs help." The German shepherd didn't budge. Instead, he gave a low, almost inaudible whine and looked back toward the fence. The little girl was gone. Sarah's breath caught. She pushed past Atlas and ran into the yard, her bare feet hitting the cold, damp grass. She reached the fence, looking left and right, her heart pounding. "Nothing's no one." "Hello," she called out, her voice cracking. "Sweetie, are you there? You're safe, I can help you." Only silence answered her. The neighbor's security light flickered, creating dancing shadows that played tricks on her eyes. Had she imagined it? No, the child had been real. She was sure of it. When she turned back, Atlas was sitting by the basement door, watching her with that same knowing expression, waiting for her to understand. Sarah stumbled back inside, her mind racing. She went upstairs and shook Mark awake. "Call the police," she said, her voice shaking. "There was a child in our yard, a little girl alone, crying." But the police would find nothing, and the real mystery was only beginning. 2 officers arrived within 15 minutes. They searched the yard with flashlights, checked the fence line, interviewed Sarah while Mark stood by, worried and confused. "Ma'am, are you sure you saw a child?" Officer Rodriguez asked gently. "Could it have been a shadow, maybe an animal?" "I know what I saw," Sarah insisted, though doubt crept into her voice. The officer's skepticism was palpable. They found no footprints, no signs of forced entry, nothing to indicate anyone had been in the yard. After an hour, they left with a promise to patrol the neighborhood and check missing persons reports. Sarah couldn't sleep. She sat in the living room with Atlas at her feet, watching the clock. Mark had gone back to bed, chalking it up to a vivid dream brought on by sleep deprivation. But Sarah knew better. At 2:47 a.m. the next night, Atlas rose again. This time, Sarah was ready. She'd set up her laptop in the basement, angled to record the window. She'd also installed a motion-activated camera in the backyard. She followed Atlas down to the basement and waited. The whimpering came at 2:53 a.m., right on schedule. Sarah's hands trembled as she watched the laptop screen. The night vision camera showed the backyard clearly, and there, materializing from the shadows near the fence, was the little girl. But this time, Sarah noticed something that made her stomach drop. The child wasn't alone. Behind her, staying carefully out of the camera's direct view, was a figure, an adult, tall, wearing dark clothing. The person was leading the child by the hand, guiding her to the fence line before disappearing back into the shadows. Sarah grabbed her phone to call 911, but Atlas placed his paw on her arm, actually placed it there deliberately, as if to say, "Wait." "What are you trying to tell me?" she whispered. Atlas moved to the window and pawed at it once, then looked back at Sarah. Then he did something extraordinary. He went to the basement door, scratched it, looked at Sarah, and then went back to the window. He repeated this sequence 3 times. He was showing her a pattern, a route. And suddenly, Sarah understood. This wasn't a random occurrence. This was happening every single night. But why? For the next 3 nights, Sarah documented everything. The child appeared at the same time, always with the shadowy adult figure, always near the same section of fence. And every night, Atlas watched, vigilant, protective, but never aggressive. On the 4th night, Sarah made a decision. She contacted Officer Rodriguez privately and showed him the footage. "I need you to trust me," she said. "Come to my house tomorrow night at 2:30 a.m. Don't announce yourself, just watch from your car." The officer, seeing the footage, agreed. The next night, Sarah, Officer Rodriguez, and his partner waited. Atlas performed his nightly ritual, leading Sarah to the basement. At 2:53 a.m., the whimpering began. But this time, when the figures appeared, the officers moved in with flashlights blazing. "Police, stay where you are." What happened next would haunt Sarah for the rest of her life. The tall figure didn't run. Instead, they stepped into the light, hands raised, revealing the face of a woman, middle-aged, exhausted, with the same desperate eyes as the child. "Please," the woman sobbed. "Please don't arrest me, I'm her mother." The little girl clutched her mother's leg, terrified. The officers approached cautiously as Sarah ran outside. "I don't understand." "My daughter has severe epilepsy," the woman explained, tears streaming down her face. "She has nocturnal seizures almost every night. After each one she becomes disoriented, confused. She sleepwalks. 3 weeks ago she climbed out her bedroom window during an episode. I've been following her every night since, making sure she's safe." Sarah's hand flew to her mouth. "We live on the other side of that fence," the woman continued, pointing. "I lost my job last month, lost our health insurance. I've been too ashamed to ask for help. Every night she ends up here at your fence and I guide her back home. I didn't know you'd seen us, I didn't know." But then came the twist that nobody, not even Sarah, had expected. "Why here?" Officer Rodriguez asked. "Why does she come to this specific spot every night?" The mother shook her head. "I don't know, she walks straight here, every time." Sarah looked at Atlas, who sat calmly watching the scene unfold. Suddenly, a memory surfaced, something she'd forgotten, something that had happened 6 months ago. "Mark," Sarah called out. Her husband had come outside. "Remember when we found Atlas digging by the fence, right here in this exact spot?" Mark nodded. "Yeah, we thought he'd buried a bone or something." Sarah knelt down, her hands touching the ground. The soil was softer here, disturbed. She began to dig with her hands, and the officers quickly joined her with their flashlights. 6 inches down, they found it. A small metal box, rusted but intact. Inside was a medical alert bracelet engraved with a name, Emma Patterson, epilepsy, severe seizure disorder. The little girl's mother gasped. That's my mother's name. She lived in your house. She died 8 years ago before we moved to the neighborhood. Sarah felt tears streaming down her face as she understood. Atlas found this months ago. He knew. Somehow, he knew someone needed it. The officer carefully examined the bracelet. There's more in here. Medical information, emergency contacts, documentation about the seizure disorder. The mother collapsed to her knees, sobbing. Mom kept journals about her epilepsy, treatment plans, everything she learned in 50 years of living with this condition. I've been so lost trying to help my daughter. I didn't know where to turn. Sarah looked at Atlas, who sat with quiet dignity, his tail waving slowly. He hadn't been reacting to random nighttime sounds. He'd been responding to the child's distress, recognizing, somehow, that the little girl's condition connected to the medical information he'd discovered buried in their yard. Every night for 3 weeks, this magnificent dog had been standing guard, ensuring the child's safety, waiting for the humans to finally understand what he'd been trying to tell them all along. The sunrise that morning felt different. Sarah sat on her porch, Atlas at her side, watching as the mother, who introduced herself as Jennifer, read through her own mother's journals with trembling hands. The medical alert information led them to Emma Patterson's former neurologist, who still practiced in the area. He had decades of specific documentation about a particular type of epilepsy that ran in their family, the same condition Jennifer's daughter had been diagnosed with. Within 2 weeks, with the right specialists and treatment plan, the little girl's nocturnal episodes decreased dramatically. A GoFundMe page set up by Sarah raised enough money to cover immediate medical expenses, and Jennifer found a new job with comprehensive health insurance. But the real miracle was Atlas. News outlets picked up the story. German Shepherd's mysterious nightly vigil saves child's life. Animal behaviorists studied the footage, amazed by Atlas's ability to recognize a medical emergency and respond consistently over weeks, despite no formal training. Dr. Chen, a veterinary neurologist, offered an explanation. Dogs can detect subtle changes in human biochemistry. Atlas likely sensed the child's post-seizure state and recognized it as similar to markers left by the home's previous occupant. His protective instinct, combined with remarkable intelligence, created a persistent response pattern. He was literally standing guard every night, making sure someone would eventually notice. Sarah would never forget the night she finally reviewed all the footage in detail. In every video at exactly 2:47 a.m., Atlas would rise, but before leaving the bedroom, he would do something she'd missed in real time. He would touch his nose to the framed photo on her nightstand, the only photo in the house of the previous owner. A photo Sarah had kept because she loved the image of the elderly woman standing in the garden with a beautiful German shepherd by her side. Emma Patterson's German shepherd, Atlas's bloodline. 6 months later, Sarah stood in her backyard, watching as Jennifer's daughter, now thriving on her new treatment plan, played fetch with Atlas. The dog moved with the same vigilant grace he always had, but there was a lightness to him now, as if a burden had been lifted. He still gets up at 2:47, Sarah told Jennifer, who had become one of her closest friends, but now he just does a quick patrol and goes back to sleep. Jennifer smiled, tears in her eyes. My mom always said her dog was special. She used to tell me that German shepherds weren't just pets, they were guardians with an eternal sense of duty. She paused. I used to think it was just the rambling of someone who loved her dog, but now you know she was right, Sarah finished. Atlas barked a joyful sound as the little girl laughed and threw the ball again. In the golden afternoon light, Sarah could almost see another figure standing beside them, an elderly woman with kind eyes, smiling at the scene before her. Some connections transcend time. Some guardians never rest. Some love is so powerful that it echoes through generations, ensuring that even in our darkest, most desperate moments, we are not alone. Atlas had taught them all that loyalty isn't just about the living. It's about honoring the past, protecting the present, and ensuring a better future. The most powerful bonds aren't always the ones we choose. Sometimes they're the ones that choose us, carried forward by faithful hearts who refuse to let love die, who stand watch in the darkness, and who wait patiently for us to finally understand what they've been trying to tell us all along. We don't deserve dogs, but thank God they love us anyway.